guys, welcome back again to another interesting tutorial where we learn how to make our wrap skirt, the wrap pencil skirt. It's very easy to make and this will be the easiest way to achieve this. So let's get started. On my table I've laid out my pattern paper, and as extracted from my basic skirt pattern, I've just marked my hip line, my waistline and the full length of the skirt. Then I've added 2-inch hemming allowance at the bottom. Now we need to go ahead and impute our darts and the rest of them. Now before we impute the darts, we're going to measure 3 inches from our center front. This is because we want an overlap slit. So we want a wide slit that will overlap. Okay, that's why I'm using 3 inches. Measuring out our 3-inch point, we'll go ahead and create the dart. Remember when we're drafting our basic skirt pattern, we created our dart by measuring from the center front our bust span. So the bust span was 4.5, so we measured from the center front, we marked 4.5 and we used that to create our dart. So we're going to do same for today's skirt. Once you've marked that, you measure 1/2 inch to the right and 1/2 to the left. Now for the knee length of this skirt, it's going to be above our knee. So what we'll do is the full length of the skirt, which is 41 inches. So we'll do 41 divided by 2, that's 20.5, but we will not mark 20.5. We'll go up by 2 inches. So that will be 18.5. So that point will be where our slit will start from. So now we'll impute our waist circumference divided by 4. 36 divided by 4 is 9 inches. We'll add that. Then we'll add 1 inch for our dart allowance, which is 10. Then our hip circumference is 44 inches. 44 divided by 4 is 11 inches. Then we'll bring down same 11 inches on the knee line. And on the full length. And on the hemming allowance. Now we'll connect that. Now we don't want a straight cut skirt, we want a pencil skirt. So we want the bottom looking sharp. So we need to reduce this bottom part. To achieve that, I will measure 4 inches at the bottom. This could be more or less depending on what you want to achieve. We will not mark it exactly on the hip, we just measure 2 inches below the hip line. Then when we mark that, we'll blend it gently into the hip. We don't want it looking sharp on that end, so that's why I'm doing that. So that's it. This is for our overlap or for the slit. Now this pattern will be used for both back and front patterns. All you just need to do is to extend your dart for the back bit. Break out your back dart. Then for the waistline, we're going to go up by 1/2 inch just to blend it into the waistline. We don't want it looking straight on that end. it creates a kind of balance on our waistline when we go up by ½ inch. So next thing is to create our zipper allowance. Like I said, we'll use this pattern for both front and back of our skirt. So we need to create our zipper allowance, knowing that this will act as our center front and center back at the same time. So when we create our zipper allowance, we'll now use it for the back pattern. So my zipper allowance will be 1 inch. The point that overlaps in front will not get to the hip line. We'll make it a bit shorter than the hip point. So we're measuring 3 inches away from the side. Okay, so we'll measure 3 inches. So at the bottom is just 1 inch away from the actual point. So we'll just connect that straight. Now we'll trace out our front pattern, then cut the back pattern and the overlap. So first we'll trace the overlap bit before we trace the front pattern. The back pattern, this is the front pattern. I've just traced it out and I added 1 inch for my seam allowance as well as the 2 inches for the hemming allowance at the bottom. So that's the center front. We're going to cut this on fold, then the back pattern will cut on fold as well, and that will be for our slits. Then this will be the wrap bit. So that's the point that overlaps at the top of the skirt. So the way we'll cut this is after cutting our front pattern, we'll now stick this. We'll stick this onto that end. So we stick this too, like so. Okay, so we'll stick them together to cut the wrap. But when cutting the front pattern, we'll cut this on fold. Then when cutting the wrap, we'll just stick this and cut one of these, and that will be the wrap for the front bit. It's very easy. So I'll show you how to cut this on fabric, and we'll go ahead to sew the skirts with the lining. Patterns have now been cut on fabric, and I've transferred my darts to the lining and the main fabric. So the lining is cut 3.5 inch shorter than the main fabric. So you just fold out your 2-inch hemming allowance, then you're going to cut the lining and add 1/2 inch seam allowance. So that's what I did on all of the patterns. Then for the overlap at the front, which is the wrap in front, I cut 2 pieces of my main fabric. I'm not going to line it with a black lining. I'll be using same fabric to line it. That's why I cut 2 pieces of that. Other than that, every other part has the lining. Then I also cut a strip of 4-inch width and 45-inch length, and that's it. So I'll be using that to create the rope for the waistline. Then I also cut out a strip that is 1 inch width and the length of the skirt. Okay, so you just cut that. We're going to attach that on our front panel. That's the overlap part. We just want a little touch of yellow on that point. This is optional if you want. So now let's go to the work table and fix all these parts together. First, we need to sew up the front piece, which is the overlap. We'll sew the bottom and sew our darts. Then we'll join the waistline. Then we're going to add our strips to that. Then we'll join all the other parts. So on the lining at the back, because we're going to be creating the slits for the back, what I did was to fold up this slit point. Okay, so we'll just fold that in. When you fold that, you mark with your chalk to indicate the others. This will be on the left side of our skirt. So when you mark that, just measure that way and that way. Then you now add your 1/2 inch seam allowance. Then we're going to cut this out, because on the left side we will not need it. Okay, so once I cut this out, I'm going to sew up all the pieces. Just watch closely and see how I sew it. finally iron out the seam, flatten out all the edges, the rope, and all round press, and it's going to be this beautiful. This is how the skirt came out. I hope this tutorial was interesting and helpful. Please, if you have any questions, drop it in the comments for me and I'll respond to them as quickly as I can. I also love suggestions and questions. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you've not subscribed to my channel, kindly subscribe and turn on all notifications. I hope to see you in my next video. Do have a lovely day. Bye.